This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, this one I need to remember. Again, no. What is the magical way? Oh, I think I point to you in particular, right?
Maybe, yeah.
Make presenter. Yes.
All right, we will share. Let's see, I need to make sure I have the right presentation. Right here, applications. Let's just do this. Okay, share. Okay, so today in the agenda items, there's no new members. We recorded the meeting. Calendar, mailing list, just everyone here knows how to access data for this workshop. We just were talking about. Hey, Shruti, are you attending virtually next week or in person?
I'm attending virtually, actually. I won't be there in person.
Okay, great. That's awesome. And the next agenda is OCP workshop presentation. So, you know, why do I have a paused app? Let's see, I wonder what. Move this window away from the, I don't really, man. Okay, let me just share my screen. Let me just try this. Please share, please ask me to share again here.
Yeah.
So while she does that, you know, basically the presentation, I'm pretty sure the agenda I saw, I only have a 30-minute slot. So the goal really is just to do, you know, build a little excitement about the framing of our white paper and then point people to white paper and call to action about getting some review between now and the ratification date. So
it says that you're a presenter, so it's not allowing me to change anything.
Oh, look, I got it. My bad. That was my bad that time. Okay, so let's just do the screen this time. Share that. Get this out of the way. Okay, so do a quick review of this. So, you know, I wanted to make sure it was covering, you know, the work of all of us. Well, I'm the presenter. I'm just really the voice of the team. I have been starting to call this a body carbon modeling for data centers just to kind of crisp it up a little bit. Please I'm just going to kind of do a high level overview for you all. Interrupt me if you feel there's important things that you feel are lacking or need to really be emphasized. So I'm really going to kind of talk about the problem statement. You know, it's like, how do the customers, the data center operators, how do they get the data? You know, if the data exists, and how do they understand the quality of the data, and what does that data mean? That's kind of the kind of key problem statement. There's a lot of like sub problem statements that have been illustrated into the white paper, but from a high level view, that's kind of how I'm thinking about it. And then, you know, Deb, I know, added this kind of graphics to the white paper, which I think are super helpful, and I can kind of talk to, you know, once people have the data in the informed stage, they can start to, you know, act and monitor that data. And so really, we're really working on the monitoring and inform, you know, phase of this, with the hopes that once we unblock that phase, we can really start to drive action. Deb, I noticed.
Sorry, Scott, to interrupt
Sure.
you. I don't know if someone's doing the sort of what is operational and what is embodied, or if that's very obvious to everyone else. So perhaps maybe even at the introduction, like just to set that. I know we've had a lot of conversations even amongst ourselves where we've like, oh no, that's really more embodied or that's really more operational. So maybe just that might be helpful.
Yeah, you're right. Let's do a little like context first.
Scoping, yeah, or context, yeah, perfect.
Scope. Yeah, that you're right, because that was like the first like multiple meetings that we had to have before we got to there. Um, so I just want to touch on, Deb, I pulled your brand new graphic on this. I want to touch on the high level approach is really to provide a API design that can be implemented by multiple implementers to expose the data that they host and control, who has access to it, but with the hopes that the API standard can enable all the providers in the data center context to return data to give a more complete picture than we have today around the embodied carbon values in the data center. So that's kind of the high level approach I want to talk through.
And
Um,
on that
yep.
slide,
Mhm.
I know I sort of sent a written note about it because when I was trying to convey in the last session, my internet was like completely dying on me. But
Yeah.
there was that concern about API should not be giving access to the central system of the vendors. So I'm just bringing it up because it might come up as a question when you're presenting.
Right, and I did update the white paper to address that very
It's
specifically.
not in this graphic though, yeah.
It's not, well, I added here the
Oh,
permissions and the licenses. Um, um,
yeah, you did. I'll make sure I'll put it in the speaker notes. I'll make sure to call it out.
well, now
Maybe
that I'm looking at this, I might make the arrows bolder or whatever and give you another version. So I could add that as well. But what I did say is that just as today a vendor would have a public database with SKU and pricing information, um, and that, is firewalled from their internal databases and things they need to keep as their IP. This would be similar, just rather than price, they would be sharing carbon,
yeah.
embodied carbon.
I'll
So
put a few
it's
notes
not
here.
a new concept. Can you
Yeah.
just say bolder arrows? So that I just remember to do that. Because I think this is perhaps okay for a white paper, but for to
Can
me
we
on my screen it looks just too.
Yeah, unfortunately, Deb, I couldn't act the way it was embedded in the doc. I couldn't edit it myself, and so if you could kill this arrow going off into the middle of nowhere too, that'd be great. It
Yeah, the
looks
point
like
of that was to say that perhaps we're not the only entity that accesses that database. That was another discussion we had that was left
yeah.
over from that
I
discussion.
think for now, for this graphic, it'd be nice to just not have
Yeah.
that. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, and it got your feedback, Shruti, and I'll make sure that's integrated into it.
Well, I'll try to show it in the picture as well.
Yeah. And then, for the data, we think some of the most value add and closing the largest gap is really in the metadata about the data, because when we talk to customers, people trying to use this data today, one of the things they're really wrestling with is that there's many LCA methodologies, there's many ways of deriving this data, but it's a lot of times not communicated as with the data, and it's also there's not a broader understanding of what the amount of unknowns are in the data. So we actually want to provide a bunch of metadata to help with this. So what has been scoped within the values provided? What are the measurement methods? What's the granularity? What calculation methods were and assumptions were used? And what are the allocation methods derived from this? Now, this is the beginning of a list of metadata associated, but we really want to make sure that we're talking about the capability as we're talking about the data as much as we are transmitting the data. Now, we believe, this will unlock many important usage scenarios in the data center. Let's start with the monitor phase. There's the ability to collect data, report on the data, ensuring that you are where you have opportunities to improve accuracy, you're taking those opportunities. Then to inform, when you're building out new data center components, you have opportunity to look for reduction, you know where the highest ROI is, and then the act is, how do you actually act on that data, and how do you drive your carbon goals and your carbon numbers down within the data store context? So I believe this is your latest, Deb, right? So for silicon example, I'm not going to really drain this slide, but
Correct.
the goal of this slide is really just to show the complexities that we're trying to address with the API. That just to produce a CPU in the data center might have hundreds or thousands of upstream suppliers which you need to account in some way for the impact of those suppliers on the data. And the API should enable scenarios where different composition methods and different supply chain connections are made, and ultimately expose the data about the specific chip in, say, data center. In this case, it's labeled as a daughter card vendor.
Right, so that would be like a DDR DIMM, right? Is the
Yeah.
daughter card example. You could say
Yeah.
that I think OCP people would understand then what we're trying to talk.
Okay, thanks, Deb. Yeah. And then next steps. So please review. I need to work on these a little bit, and I'll provide the link here. We'll still drive towards the API specification by the OCP Global Summit in October, end of year, and then we still have the goal of putting in place one implementation of this between a vendor and a downstream consumer. Any other thoughts on next steps? So I still feel that's I gotta prep that talk a little bit more, because I think that the amount of content is probably a little more than 30 minutes at this point. But I think I got it down to kind of the fundamentals. So did I miss anything in the chat? Critical feedback people want to bring up verbally now?
I think overall it looks pretty good.
Nothing particular, I think, except
Okay.
that I think are already taken care of.
Great. Okay.
Sorry, I could bring up one thing which
Sure.
which is not particularly related to the slides, but I'm just guessing if somebody is bringing up as a question. So there was some question raised about whether this this data in whatever format is being decided, is it sitting on the components, like in the component logs? Can the component be queried for that? And I guess the context of the question was just to figure out whether is it going to be, so to say, a technology change where the component basically needs a change, or is it just a specification document, or outside of the component side, so no technology change?
Yeah, it's a really great question, Shruti. I actually, for now, I think we should probably leave it up to the implementer of the API. But there has been, like I mentioned last time, some thoughts around that this is exposed in a way where Redfish could potentially be queried on it, or there might be a database somewhere that has a front end that has this API implemented. So actually, if I were to view the future, I think there's probably going to be a variety of areas where the data is stored, and an interesting ecosystem that might need to be created, hopefully with the idea is that ecosystem is aligning around the API specification. So, but I believe probably the prototype will probably be exposing it into the baseboard management interface such that the Redfish could expose it.
Okay.
But that doesn't necessarily need to be the only way that it's exposed.
And we don't want to put a recommendation on the way to expose it then. Am I getting that right? We don't want to go into that.
I don't think so, because I actually think it's going to be, I could feel pretty strongly it's going to need to be exposed in multiple different ways. There might be components where it is totally appropriate to expose it through, something that is queryable on the component itself, and then there's might be things where it's totally impractical to do that. So
But I would just say, keep in mind that for a tenant of a data center, there's no way they would ever be able to get access like through Redfish, et cetera. So we want to give tenants a way to get possibly less, less granular data, but good enough data for them to move forward.
yeah.
And so that would be, not sideband of the data center, but outside of the data center altogether, calling it this API and getting, information from researchers, et cetera. Because as we've talked about, there's certain, the best data probably one will only be able to obtain via NDA. And, there's hopefully millions of developers that will be able to, get moving, and they're not going to get those NDAs.
Okay. Yep. I agree with you. Any more comments, or we'll go to Deb? All right. I'll stop sharing. Let's see. What's the right button for this? Let's see.
On the upper right where it says share.
There we are.
So I did send out an email, which unfortunately we still have little hiccups in
It
my
should have been
ability.
sent out now, Deb. I unblocked it. In you have free reign about sending on to the alias now.
Yes. So I'm not sure if I can share. Looks like I can. That's good. So maybe we can start with the quick hitters of the questions that I had. So all these problems of all these windows, I don't know. Anyway, so let's just go towards the back of the document. So on the references section, somebody put in a reference that I could not access without paying hundreds of dollars. So, yeah. Does anybody know? Was that you, Shruti?
I put in that reference, but it actually came from Ari. But at that point, he was not able to access the document, so I appended the references he wanted. I was able to access though. Let me check.
This is a great idea, though. Maybe I should put something in a reference that makes people pay for it. That would be
right.
I never thought about that.
Yeah. And then the other thing was I would like to delete these Seagate specific references, or we can let anybody put in their own corporate sustainability marketing material, shall we say. So can we have a vote on that, Scott? Personally, I would prefer to have it not have corporate information, but
I have to maybe DJ, if you're listening, are we allowed to reference specific OCP member references in these white papers?
Can you give me an example, Vijay, so I can understand the question better?
Maybe Deb, you want to illustrate it?
Yeah.
so, right, so we have these like Seagate reports that somebody put links in. So it just kind of is like a lot of marketing, or,
all of this is public information because it's on the website. Yeah.
Right.
So
the question is if we're putting in Seagate's, then, you know, why not put in Intel's? You know, this stuff is it's public, but it's very marketing focused, shall we say? Yeah, I mean, if we're gonna do that, then everybody can jump in and put all their corporate sustainability marketing links here.
So,
Personally, I'd rather not.
I want to give one more context on, why Ari put this in. If you see, he also has a sentence in the storage section where he gives an example, and the example is Seagate, and this is actually related. This is the exact example.
Yeah. So the question,
with that,
yeah, I think the question which Vijay asked was very different, Deborah, than what you're talking about from the marketing perspective. The question asked was, are we allowed to put other company names in the OCP white paper? That was the question. The short answer is yes, we are allowed to put anything which is a public information as a reference. Just like what Shruti just mentioned, if there is a element in that white paper or on the website which has a bearing to the content which we are writing, you're absolutely okay to reference that and use that in your white paper. There's nothing wrong with that. That's a standard practice. In fact,
all right, so I'm going to add Intel favorable links. You're good with that?
Yes, you should add.
So I worked very, very hard to not be Intel centric, even though I wrote most of this. But, you know, if we're allowed to, you know, do that, then I will go ahead.
So Deborah, again, let me qualify. We have to. This is not a list of links which we are just adding with no purpose served. These links have to serve a purpose of something which we are communicating in the carbon modeling. So these links should be more of a reference which has been drawn upon in the narrative which has been put together in the white paper. So to the extent that matches, please put those links. But this is a collection of laundry list of links we just dump into the white paper and there is no bearing into the main paper.
Okay, so that's the decision. Very good. I will add a bunch from Intel as well. So the next
and about one more thing. Those three links, right at the end, that was by Ari. The first out of those three, that's not Seagate, and that was the one you were saying is not accessible. So I just checked.
It says to spend money to read it. $4,500.
Right. So I guess I'm able to access it due to something else. He has only actually added that because he's giving a more generic view right at the start of the storage section, which is about, if you see the link is about prediction in the next 3 years. So if we want, it is a generic statement. It's not about like specific carbon format or anything. So if we want, we can remove that link.
Okay, so I will remove it.
But to be fair, there'll be a lot of like even academic articles and stuff that are behind paywalls, and I guess IDC is a pretty reputed vendor, right? And a lot of people do have institutional access to it.
But they're not an OCP member, and that's a lot of money. So.
But I'm saying a lot of companies who are members of OCP will have membership to IDC. IDC is just
that's true. Yeah.
It's a research.
It's like a Gartner. It's like Gartner.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a technical
just show you. You know, I work for one of these large corporations, and I don't have access. So, I don't think we need to drive any money to these vendors that charge a lot for their information. Drive any clicks there. All right. The next thing I want to talk about was the license. This is boilerplate from OCP. We have a choice of 2 different kinds of license. We could do the Creative Commons, and OCP gave us a whole bunch of suggested language, or we could copyright it. So I guess, since the email didn't come out, I'd like people to read this through, and maybe next time we meet, we could decide between those 2 different options.
Yeah,
Uh,
my suggestion is to go with the most relaxed option. I think Creative Commons is the most relaxed option because the goal of the carbon modeling white paper is for everyone around the planet to use it in any
Yeah.
form or shape possible, which helps our cause, honestly. So my suggestion is people should be allowed to take content out of it, present it in their slides. As long as they reference this white paper, more power to everyone trying to use the content here. That would be the success I would measure. If more people copy content from here, the more successful this white paper is.
Yeah.
so what do people think? Do we want to just put it to a vote right now and decide?
Yeah, I think we should do that. I mean, it's a
Yeah.
pretty simple matter, so we can decide in 5 minutes.
Yeah, I'm good with um the,
Creative Commons?
the Creative Commons license. Yeah, yeah. I don't know what if other people feel
Same.
strongly.
We have no concerns.
Everyone, is there a way to do reaction thumbs up or we'll just +1 to CC in my comments. So I just put that in the chat. So
All right, somebody commented that they're fine with Creative Commons.
yeah, that's Richard.
Oh,
Yeah. So
I think I might have given 3 thumbs ups.
And is
yeah,
everybody
I'm
okay?
really excited about it.
This is suggested language. Is there anything in the language that is of concern to anybody that they would want to alter?
yeah. So Deborah,
I do not understand what this little footer thing is, to be
yeah,
honest.
That's the Creative Commons like graphic about what you can use it for.
exactly. In fact,
So
there
we
is a
would just keep
this
that
white paper.
footer on this page, or do we need to put it on every page?
So, Deborah, there is another OCP sustainability white paper which has been published. It's on the OCP webpage. Just take a look at it and we copy exactly that. We don't need to reinvent this piece. We should spend the least amount of time on this piece. If you go to the OCP sustainability webpage, let me see if I can find that link while you guys are discussing. It's already there.
I have the link handy in my links here. Let's see. I'll drop it in the chat.
Yep, exactly. It's a OCP sustainability white paper which has been published before.
Yeah.
All right, so great. Thank you, everybody. So that's it for administrivia. So now we can get back to the actual comments. So the critical thing to understand is that I took some things having been reordered or left to linger for a long time. There was just sort of duplication of information, etc. So I kind of put a bunch of things together with all the discussion, I edited it. So this, just for everybody to locate, this is page 6. I added, so this is under this just general usage scenarios section. I added this just table here, not as the complete list of consumers and providers, but just to sort of give people a sense of the universe of possibilities. And then also to just kind of highlight, we keep coming up with these discussions of, what would be the usage restrictions on the data? What would be licenses or fees that would be associated? And then again, through the metadata and the grading, just sort of the quality and completeness of data. So I threw this table in to just sort of show, give people a sense of the universe and the restrictions, etc. And then I added this architecture overview to, I moved the picture from elsewhere and I added, and this is the same picture that Scott showed, I added more information on the picture. Before it just showed a bunch of black and white databases, but didn't talk about the different types of hosts, etc. And then I added more clarity on the API and and then what would be returned. This student used to talk about the APIs in this like little orange box, so I added that. And then rather than just saying software, I said it was the data center embodied carbon request software. So I did put some verbiage that was editing of what we had before above. I tried to add clarity with the picture. And then I talked about what this blue box would need to do kind of in more details. And so this is, people haven't had time to look at this, so I'll leave this for your review. And then here's Ruthie. I did talk about kind of specifically what you were asking about, the difference between an internal system and this externally visible system that a vendor would put up. And I put the analogy of publishing pricing publicly, right?
Thank you. Yeah.
And then I did say, again, we've talked about this many times, manufacturers will have the option to strictly control access. So that's like in that table above, NDA or having a license or whatever, that prohibits sharing of the data beyond agreed terms. We do have a place in the metadata for including legal disclaimers. And then just that over time, we do hope that researchers will be able to publish their information with perhaps fewer, boundaries like an NDA would be. But again, we want researchers and consultants to be able to put in a license and collect a fee. For example, if another piece of software that charges, like in the FinOps context, for example, we had that discussion this week. They have a lot of customers and they charge those customers about cost information, and they want to add carbon information, that would be fine, but probably a researcher would want them to give the researcher a cut of their, that other piece of software's income, since the researcher would be supplying the critical information. So, so that's kind of what, I tried to build up. The idea would be that what we provide would, pass through permissions and licenses and fees, and then each vendor and consortia would make the final decision as to whether the access is allowed or not allowed. So that's an overview of the changes I made. Let's open it up for comments, and also I would just say if people could read it offline as well and add comments, I would greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, it looks like a great set of changes, Deb. Thanks for kind of being so thorough on that.
One quick thing, when we are sending this link to folks for feedback and comment, does somebody need to add them into the access list, or will they just be able to comment?
So that's a great question, Shruti. We've had a lot of problems. Even like Divya, who's on this team, at one point she was able to add comments and now she can't. We don't know it seems that everybody I've given a link to can at a minimum read this. And I've asked people if they can only read it but not add comments to send me via email their comments, and like you can see, like what I did here is like I took the email comments and added them for somebody who
Yeah,
couldn't.
everyone should have the ability to edit and add comments. I think every single person I've added has been as an editor. So they should have the ability to add comments.
Sorry, Vijay, didn't mean to cut you off there. So yeah, what I found out was if I use the link that Deb provides, it just gives me read-only access. But if I use the link that I think was sent out at the very beginning with the edit access, I'm able to actually add my comments. So someone
Oh,
can go
I
back to
wonder
your
if,
email threads.
let me do something. Let me make sure that Deb is
Okay.
also an owner of this document. That way, maybe by default she doesn't, I don't know. Let me try that out. I'll make you an, oh no, yeah, you are the thing. No, that's weird.
Do we want to, when I look at it, it appears that the current sharing access is that anyone with this link is a viewer. If we just
Should I
change
just
that
make it a commenter? Yeah. All right, done.
Yeah, reviewer. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know.
I
Ari
mean, I
asked,
guess anyone with the link can be an editor as well. I guess that's fine. Right. Okay. You should all be able to at least comment.
and then
Well,
I was bringing up. Sorry.
I was gonna say, it's not just those of us that are in this meeting now, we've sent it out to other people. So
They should be able to at a minimum comment.
everybody should be able to comment?
Yes.
Oh,
Okay.
that's awesome. Divya, if you could just give it a shot, and because sometimes the blocker seems to be on the side of the person's company. But yeah, Divya, if you could give it a shot and let us know if you could add a comment, that would be an awesome piece of information. All right,
Yes,
I
too bad.
think
I was gonna say it's too bad we don't have anybody from Google in here that could help us unblock all those
I know.
IT things.
All
Divya
right.
just said it works, so that's great. Thanks to checking Divya.
Okay, so that's great. So we definitely made a big step forward today. That's awesome. So yeah, please go through at least like the usage scenarios and then the architecture overview, add your comments, and next time we meet we can talk it over. But I'm hoping that this has addressed a lot of the issues that have been repeatedly been a source of questions for us. So
Yep.
let's see if we move the ball any closer. All right, that's it for me.
Anybody else have any opens or things they wanted to share?
Nothing on my end. Enjoy the conference, those that are there.
Yeah, so I know a few people joined late, so we will be presenting. We have a 30-minute slot. I'll be presenting in person there, our team's work on next Tuesday, so feel free to join virtually if you aren't able to join in person. And then we will, all the mechanics thing, I'll probably cancel this instance next week, since to provide a little relief given the time for the workshop. So we'll probably meet back as a team in a couple weeks. All right. Well, thanks
everyone.
everybody.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Bye.